Well, welcome, and we'll call the Housing and Redevelopment Authority meeting to order for September 22nd. We'll start by noting the attendance of all trustees. We're all here, present and accounted for. I have no chair's remarks for you today. So the first thing we'll do is consider approving the minutes of the HRA board meeting of August 25th of this year. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Look, second by trustee West. Any corrections, additions, deletions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The minutes are adopted. Next, we will have a public hearing to obtain comments on the Twin Cities draft regional analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. Combined notice of public hearing and public comment period is attached.
Mr. Chair, every 5 years we go through the process of our regional group known as the Fair Housing Implementation Council. We go through the process of gathering data, trying to determine if we are meeting fair housing goals, what we could do to improve things, and identifying really where the strengths and weaknesses are. We've gone deeper this time. We've hired a firm out of Washington, D.C. On our WebEx today, we have Sarah Carthen-Watson. She has taken the lead from this group in Washington called the Lawyers Committee, and she will start by walking us through a PowerPoint of the Twin Cities regional analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. Sarah?
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear and see me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. It's great to be here. This is our final public hearing for the regional analysis of impediments to fair housing choice, and it has been great working on this with Karen and the rest of the FIC for over a year now. I'm also from the Twin Cities region. I grew up in Shoreview, so it's really been awesome to do this work at home and kind of dig deeper into where I'm from and see what's going on. So this PowerPoint is going to walk through just an overview of the AI process, what it's for. I'm sure you all are familiar with this, but then we'll also get into kind of the meat of the AI, which is the goals and strategies section. And I will, click through the different goals and strategies that we've identified and allow time for any questions or comments on those. So if you have any questions as we go along before we get there, just feel free to jump in and let me know. Otherwise, I'll click on through. I know you all had a meeting that ran a little long this morning, so I don't want to keep you longer than necessary. Let's see if I can figure out how to click through. There we go. Okay, so we've already done introductions. Just to give a quick overview, when we're talking about the analysis of impediments to fair housing choice, often we'll refer to two different things. One are protected classes. So the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in all types of real estate transactions, including sale of housing, financing of different housing options and dwellings, and rental housing, excuse me. And these are prohibited according to various protected classes. So the Fair Housing Act enumerates a few protected classes, including race, color, religion, sex, familial status, national origin, and disability. What's great about Minnesota is that the Minnesota Human Rights Act actually provides for additional protected classes and prohibits discrimination in employment, public accommodations, et cetera, as well as housing. So if you look at the two lists, you can see that Minnesota has additional protections for age, marital status, sexual orientation, and gender identity, which is great. So when we talk about protected classes going forward, that's who we're talking about, just so everybody is on the same page. The other thing that you'll hear come up is the affirmatively furthering fair housing rule, which the current administration is attempting to dismantle, but it's still in place at the moment, so we will still follow it. So the Fair Housing Act not only prohibits discrimination, but it also requires that HUD take steps to actively remedy housing discrimination that's occurred over hundreds of years. So HUD has to do more than simply not discriminate itself and do more than just try to prohibit discrimination, but the act actually requires HUD and all of its grantees to administer programs in a way that affirmatively furthers fair housing, which means administering programs that will help end discrimination and end segregation and actually, provide additional housing opportunities to people. And so that's what we mean when we say the affirmatively furthering fair housing rule. And the purpose of this rule is really to ensure that we're not just, making sure that people aren't discriminating regularly, but making sure that people actually have increased access to housing choice. So it's a rule that's designed to kind of integrate with other planning documents that jurisdictions have to complete, including the consolidated plan, annual action plans, and plans put together by public housing authorities. And it's really designed to take a look at the last 5 years of a jurisdiction, see what steps they've taken to address barriers to housing within their jurisdiction, and figure out how to determine locally focused goals for the next 5-year cycle and what steps they can take to improve access to affordable, safe housing for people in their jurisdiction. So it really is, it's a planning rule. It requires a lot of analysis, a lot of data analysis, a lot of community engagement, and then designing goals and strategies based off that analysis to really help people in the jurisdiction. So just a quick overview of the process. We started this, we kicked off in August of last year. And since then, we've done an enormous amount of research, enormous amount of community engagement that's gone into these recommendations and goals. So first, we start by looking at HUD data. And HUD has an enormous source of data. If you look at the actual draft, because there are 13 jurisdictions analyzed in this analysis, there are probably 300 pages of maps and tables in this document. And it seems excessive, but they're really, really, really important. So the HUD data will provide us with kind of generalized patterns that we can see on a geographic scale. We look at maps that have groupings based on race and ethnicity, groupings based on where affordable housing is located, groupings based on maps based on where renters versus homeowners live, access to proficient schools, access to low-cost public transportation. We have access to all of these maps, and not only do we have access to them individually, but we can overlay them as well. And so we do a lot of that. But in addition, we want to make sure that we are getting access to the most current and most locally focused data. So thanks to the FIC and particularly the Metropolitan Council, we were able to analyze a lot of local data, particularly around affordable housing production in the region, as well as do local policy analysis. You know, for example, one example that comes to mind is looking at school assignment policies and the ability of people to bus to different schools throughout the region to have access to more proficient schools. So in addition to kind of the black and white data analysis, what really colors this in is the community engagement. So we've conducted focus groups, community meetings, as well as these 7 public hearings to really garner comment from the community, to garner comments from HRA boards, to make sure that this document is really reflecting the needs and desires of the people in the region and making sure that those most affected by these policies have a say in what their jurisdictions are doing. And then we take all of that information and consolidate it into this draft. So we think of all of the issues, all of the barriers that were identified, and figure out how we can put together tangible steps that jurisdictions can take to address those barriers. And we try not to be too, pie in the sky. We want to be practical, and we want to give specific steps, not just kind of increase affordable housing, that's kind of lofty, but we can set that as a goal and then provide specific strategies to address that goal. And so that's what we try to do. This is just an example of the type of data that we look at. So if you look on the left side of the screen, this is what we call a dot density map. And so each dot represents 250 people in this map, and they're color-coded based on race. So this is kind of like a base map that we would look at. And you can see that people of color tend to be grouped in the center of the region, in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the northwestern suburbs, as well as a couple groupings in the southwestern suburbs. But what we can do is overlay this map, and we can see patterns of segregation occur, and we can look at one of these maps for each of the 13 jurisdictions. So this is kind of a zoomed out regional version, but there's also a specific one for Anoka County. There are specific ones for each entitlement jurisdiction. And we can take a map of school proficiency, for example, and overlay this on top of the race and ethnicity map and say, oh, people of this race tend to have less access to proficient schools, or people of this national origin tend to have less access to proficient schools. And so that really allows us to do some comparator analysis and think about what types of patterns have emerged and how we can address them. On the right is an example of a table, and I included this because I always want people to know that we're not just looking at things as they are currently. You see the far right column is the 1990 trend. So we go all the way back when we're looking at data to make sure that we're not missing any specific patterns that have emerged over time, to make sure that our analysis is informed by differences in demographics and other types of population changes over time, and also so that we can put together, when we're doing a local policy analysis, is there some type of policy that changed in a certain period of time that may have affected demographics or may have affected other types of population grouping. So we're looking over an extensive amount of time, as well as the current numbers, to make sure that we're getting the full picture. And this list is, I won't expect you all to read it all right now, but it's also located in the executive summary and in the actual draft itself. But I just wanted to include this slide to show the sheer volume of community engagement that we did. Starting in August of last year, I was flying back and forth between DC and Minnesota, which my mom was very happy about, to do community engagement and meet with folks. And we worked with the FIC to develop a list of stakeholders to reach out to and different groups to reach out to. And so this was really a collaborative effort to reach as many people as possible, from community groups, tenant organizing groups, groups of unhoused or formerly unhoused people, people who are service providers, continuum of care providers. We really tried to reach the full array of groups, particularly groups that represent protected classes, to see what issues their constituents are facing, what steps they're already taking to address them, to see if maybe there are ways that we could adapt a specific organization's model to help more people, all types of things. So I really wanted to include this because community engagement, especially as civil rights attorneys, we know that people of protected classes are not always included in decision making. And it was really, really important to us to have a wide range of stakeholders and community groups represented to make sure that this document that is ultimately going to affect them and the people they serve actually represents them. Okay, so we're going to move into the goals and strategies. And in the interest of time, I think having done so many of these now, I think the best way to do it is to kind of give you an overview. At the top of the slide, you'll see the goal, kind of the overarching theme, and then there will be strategies underneath of how we think the jurisdictions can take steps to address them. So I'll give a little overview of why we chose that goal, what kind of community engagement or other types of analysis provided earlier in the process informed that goal, and then I'll give you all a chance to read each goal, read the strategies, and I'll take any questions because it can be kind of hard to remember each of the slides if you wait till the end. So we'll do that. I also just want to note, because this has come up in some of the other public hearings, that there are advantages and disadvantages to doing a regional analysis. And one of the advantages is that you can really do kind of an overarching analysis, especially in a region that, like the Twin Cities, that is so large and kind of spread out, but also very interconnected. You can see patterns across the region. One of the downsides of that is that even though the analysis itself, it's 600 pages, each section has an analysis for each jurisdiction. The goals and strategies section are really designed to be kind of universal across the region. And so there are some goals and strategies that may apply to every region. There are some or to every jurisdiction. There are some that may apply to one of the jurisdictions or a couple of the jurisdictions. And so we kind of designed them to be a menu, if you will, that jurisdictions can say, this is an issue in our jurisdiction and we want to take this strategy up. So this is not to say that Anoka County needs to implement every single strategy that is on every single slide in this PowerPoint. So I just wanted to kind of give that disclaimer here. So the first goal is simply to increase the supply of affordable housing, particularly in high opportunity areas. So in community engagement, one of the first things that we heard is that the cost of living in Minnesota, in the Twin Cities region, is going up significantly, and there just isn't enough affordable housing. And one thing particularly that we heard is that there's a lot of flipping of affordable housing, that affordable housing is not being maintained, and investors are coming up to flip that affordable housing. It's not remaining affordable, and that new development is not always affordable, especially at deeper levels of affordability. So our first goal is simply, people need affordable housing, places to live. There needs to be enough units, physical units for people to live in. So our first goal is to increase the supply of affordable housing, particularly in areas that provide higher opportunities for folks. And so these goals are designed to address that. I'll also say that these goals and strategies, the FIC asked me to highlight a few strategies for each goal. So if you look in the executive summary and in the actual document itself, there are additional strategies for each goal, but I've highlighted a few for these slides. So I'll give you all a few minutes to read that, and then let me know if you have any questions.
Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you so much. Can I get like a copy of this slide? I actually emailed you about it because there's a lot of really good information that I mean, honestly, a lot of it went right over my head that I want to take a peek at when I, can read it at my leisure.
Sure.
Yes, I'll absolutely send it out.
We will have the full PowerPoint as well as the full 800-page document available for you to review.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't hear that if it was directed at me.
No, we've taken care of it on our end, sir.
We emailed this slide deck. Okay, thanks.
I just need the PowerPoint.
Got it.
Yeah.
One of our commissioners is requesting the PowerPoint presentation, so we'll make sure she gets that. And I think that's the last of our questions for you, so you can move on.
Awesome. Okay, so as I just mentioned, the next thing that we heard is that the existing stock of affordable rental housing is not in great shape across the region. And this ranges all the way from affordable single-family homes, multifamily homes, all the way to manufactured home communities. And so we wanted to find a way, especially with a lot of the new development that's occurring in the region, to make sure that outside investors particularly are not coming in, buying up a lot of rental property and displacing a lot of people in the process, and making sure that the actual stock of existing affordable rental housing is maintained regularly and updated so that people have safe and affordable places to live. So these goals are designed to address the existing stock of affordable rental housing.
Sarah, I think we can move on to the next slide.
Okay. Goal 3, I think, we know we've done a lot of these analyses and we've talked about home ownership for members of protected classes, but I think in Minnesota particularly, this is a really important goal because Minnesota has one of the highest home ownership rates across the country, but we also know that those home ownership rates are not equal across various protected classes. And a number of the jurisdictions have been doing wonderful things, developed a lot of programming to help households of color attain home ownership. And so these goals are designed to kind of support those aspirations. Particularly, we identified a lot of lending discrimination that was occurring in the region. So households of color were getting denied for loans more often. If they were approved for loans at lower rates, and when they were approved for loans, are more likely to have subprime loans or loans with less favorable lease term or less favorable terms. We also know that can be credit issues, particularly for families that are new to Minnesota or new to America without having a credit history. And so these goals are kind of designed to help folks who may struggle with attaining home ownership in ways that jurisdictions can provide them with additional support.
I think we can move to the next slide.
Got it. Okay, so goal 4 is to prevent displacement of Black and Brown communities, and particularly low and moderate income residents. So with the buying up of affordable rental housing and additional development, a lot of times we've heard in community engagement from various community groups that tenants are being displaced, whether that's transit expansion that's displacing folks, or somebody coming in and buying up a building and evicting all the tenants so they can build market rate units. So these goals are designed to provide additional protections for tenants so that they can't be kind of evicted or kicked out on a whim, and also make sure that jurisdictions are when there's new development, jurisdictions are considering the potential impact on communities that that are at risk of displacement.
Okay, next slide, Sarah. Goal
5 is to increase community integration for people with disabilities. Sorry, went too far. For persons with disabilities. So we met with the Minnesota State Council on Disability, as well as some localized disability rights groups, and we heard a lot about issues with the voucher program, and also just ways that a lot of folks with disabilities are unable to integrate truly into communities or are limited in their housing opportunities. So whether that means that they have to live in a certain area because that's the only place where they can afford transportation, a low-cost transportation, or there are only certain places that will accept their housing voucher, or only certain places that will provide reasonable accommodations, or or, certain places may not allow for a home health aide to live with them. We heard a lot that folks with disabilities are limited in their housing choices. So these goals are designed to allow for increased community integration for that population so that they're able to have more choice and be really integrated within the community.
Next slide, Sarah.
So goal 6 is a bit of a catch-all category. It's really more aimed at inclusivity and preventing unnecessary discrimination when it comes to housing. And so the goal is to ensure equal access to housing for persons with protected characteristics, those who are lower income and those who are unhoused or homeless. And so again, these are aimed at providing additional tenant protections, putting restrictions on screening for landlords so that they're only considering background information that will actually have a bearing on whether someone would be a good tenant or be, a safe tenant without unnecessarily excluding people. Providing the opportunity for people to have records expunged so that those records don't impact their ability to find housing. And I think this slide is particularly important given everything that's happening with COVID. We know that a wave of evictions is on the horizon, and we want to make sure that people are having access to housing and are not being unnecessarily excluded.
Next slide, Sarah.
And this is goal 6 continued.
Okay, I think we can move to the next one.
Okay. So goal 7 is kind of a more zoomed out goal, expanding opportunity for protected classes. And we know that housing is not, you can't divorce housing from employment, from access to transportation, education, and things like that. And so things like increasing the minimum wage, we know that Anoka County can't decide to raise the minimum wage for the entire region to $15 an hour. But these are things that we think that jurisdictions can advocate for or take more localized steps to address that would provide increased opportunity throughout the region.
Okay, we can move on to the next slide.
All right. And the last slide is related to those who use housing vouchers and reducing barriers to mobility so that people have additional choice throughout the region of using those vouchers. So that ranges from increasing landlord and developer outreach so that there's a larger pool of landlords who are willing to accept vouchers, making sure that new development that's using public funds is not agreeing not to discriminate on the basis of an applicant's receipt of public assistance, and exploring the idea of using small area fair market rents to increase the payment standards for vouchers so that folks have access to better housing or housing in more areas of opportunity.
Thank you, Sarah. Do you have another slide?
I think that is the last goal.
Mr.
That's
Chair.
it.
Thank you, Sarah. Mr. Chair, these were very high-level overviews of the work the FIC has been doing in partnership with the Lawyers Committee. At this point, I think I have no more comments. I think we're ready to open a public hearing.
Very good. We will open the public hearing.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I assume you're turning it over to me for the public hearing.
I am, sir.
At this point, we would then convene the public hearing, the combined notice of public hearing and public comment period for the draft regional analysis of impediments to the fair housing choice. Notice of this public hearing was published in the Anoka County Union on Friday, August 28th, 2020. And again, the purpose is to review and gather feedback on the Twin Cities draft regional analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. And at this point, I would ask Executive Director Karen Skepper if she has any comments to make for purposes of this public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I have no further comments. We have received a written comment that I would like to share with the group if this is appropriate.
Okay. First, before we do that, if there are any questions by Executive Director, by the board, before we open it up to public comments. Are there any questions? No questions, then I would turn to that point in the public hearing and open up for public comments, and you have indicated that there has been one comment received. If you would, please address the board with that.
Thank you, County Attorney Palumbo. Mr. Chair, trustees, we did receive one letter from Micah. There are 5 key points that they've commented on. The first comment says Micah had requested a copy of the draft AI be sent as soon as it was published. They received the draft just prior to Dakota and Washington County's public comment meetings. They recognized that we were all very busy addressing COVID-19 challenges in the communities, but they were disappointed that they were not notified until June 26th. They're concerned about the current process for community input reviewing the draft. The second comment, they appreciated the excellent identification of most of the issues discussed in the listening sessions, but believe more details need to be provided for people to understand the recommendations. Number 3, the charts and information sections are very detailed information. Number 4, the proposed goals and strategies are suggestions/aspirations, not goals and strategies. To be goals and strategies, they need to be organized by each county with specific benchmarks, timelines, outcomes, and resources to implement the goals and strategies. And number 5, we strongly encourage you to not approve or accept the Twin Cities Regional Assessment of Fair Housing draft in its current format, and that you require goals and strategy section is updated with clear, measurable goals and strategies, including funding resources and dates to be completed. These strategies should be identified as goals and strategies in the consolidated plan, and the accomplishments should be identified in every annual CAPER. Micah will be providing a more detailed analysis of the entire document in the next couple of weeks. That is the summary of the comments that we've received.
And for the record, Karen, that is a letter from the Metropolitan Interfaith Council on Affordable Housing. That's what MICA stands for, is that correct?
That is correct.
And that is a letter dated September 21, 2020, is that correct?
That is correct.
And that will be submitted as part of the record?
It will be.
For the review, okay. Members of the public at this time, I understand we're on WebEx, is that correct? So any other member of the public who is viewing this could offer comments at this time, is that correct? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and I would ask then any member of the public that wishes to offer comments on the draft as presented today in this meeting, is there any member of the public that wishes to offer comments? Okay, and I will ask a third time, is there any member of the public who is viewing this particular public hearing, if they wish to offer comments on the draft as presented to this body this morning? Okay. For the record, I don't have any comments. I have not heard any comments from the public through the WebEx, and at this point, other than to say I would ask the clerk to at least make the public notice a part of the record, but having no further comments, I would then close the meeting and turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Attorney Palumbo. And this is, the public hearing has concluded for item 5. Are there any closing comments before we move on to item 6?
Mr. Chair, we would ask that you consider approving this, the submission of the analysis of impediments to the Dakota County Consortium, where the final public hearing will take place.
So we're looking for a motion here today to accept and approve.
That is correct.
This document. All right. Is there a motion to approve? Commissioner Reinhardt.
Well, if the
Excuse me,
document
Trustee
is
Reinhardt.
800 pages, how can we approve it without reading it? A lot of times with reports, you receive it, and that's an action. So if we want to receive it, I think that that would be appropriate action, but to approve it, I don't think any of us have read it.
Karen.
Mr. Chair, Trustee, we can make the full report available. It's been posted on our website for the last month. Our final action will be the Dakota County Board will take action in about a month to incorporate this into our Dakota County Consortium plan. If you choose not to take action today, we can certainly move forward with this next month at our meeting.
So the motion I would look for today is to at least accept this report.
To receive it, yeah.
To receive it, and then we can take it under advisement until our next meeting after we read the, I heard two different numbers. I heard 600 pages and 800 pages, somewhere in between there.
I believe it's 15 pages.
Pardon me?
I believe it's 615 pages.
615 pages. Again, this is a synopsis or summary of what that report is. You're right, sometimes the devil's in the details, and maybe we want to see every single word, but Again, this is one single report that will go into our consolidated plan. Trustee Gamache, I saw your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm a little bit confused as to our role in approving this because, as you mentioned, Dakota County is the consortium or whatever their title is. So if and this has already gone, I guess, has been received by Dakota and Washington County, and they've already made public comments on this according to this letter from Micah. So yeah, my question would be, if we do have time, we're not necessarily needing to do this today. We can push it to our next meeting in a month or perhaps whenever. I'm not sure. Is there a deadline on when we have to approve?
Mr. Chair, Trustee Gamache, we may want to make our HRA Management Committee a special meeting of the board so we don't hold up the process for Dakota County submitting this. We want to make sure that we have buy-in from our boards and that the final action taken by Dakota County isn't the only say in the Twin Cities area.
Okay.
Trustee Reinert.
Yeah, and so I would agree with Commissioner Gamache. The relationship between the county and what's being asked for here too is something I want to understand a little bit better because planning and zoning is really at the city level. Now there are some counties in the country, southern states, where actually counties have zoning authority, which is kind of a surprise to me. I find that out. But really that zoning and planning and those kind of things are at a city level. And so I kind of want to understand more the relationship and the responsibility of what we're actually accepting and agreeing to here. So, I mean, a lot of good stuff that, we just saw, but just a little deeper dive, I think.
Yeah, there are lots of counties actually in Minnesota that have planning and zoning authority.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
It's not unusual if you get out of the metro. But I would say that this consortium is a group of counties that got together because we have to put together a consolidated plan every 5 years on how we're going to deal with a lot of different issues. And we've determined that as a group of counties, we can do it much more efficiently than we can individually. Karen, take over for me.
Mr. Chair, trustees, the most important reason we formed a commission or a consortium was to receive home investment partnership funding. We were not large enough as a single county. All of the counties that are part of the consortium were not large enough to receive direct dollars. So by banding together, we bring a significant amount of additional dollars into the county. This past year, I believe we brought in about $700,000 for affordable housing type projects, typically the type of bricks and stick project where you're building or providing assistance directly to low-income persons. In order to do our work, we have to meet all of the fair housing laws, and we have to understand what our next steps have to be. As each funding year, we create two documents. One is our action plan, which tells you and the public what we will be doing with the HUD funding this current year as we're going forward. And the second document we do at the end of the year is called the CAPER, which is our annual performance report. Both of these documents will refer back to this fair housing document to make sure that we are attempting to further fair housing in Anoka County.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the report?
So moved.
I have a motion by Trustee Reinert. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Gamache. Trustee Look.
Mr. Chair, I was just going to comment from personal kind of experience. I've been door knocking a fair amount lately, and just in my communities, I've had the unique opportunity to meet and talk with a lot of people of color that have moved into the communities. Particularly based on accent, I can pick up that they may not have been born here, and so I asked them, where are you from? And there are people from Cameroon, Liberia, Nigeria, the Congo, Kenya, and some of you may not know that I've spent 8 years of my life over in Africa, and so it's always a pleasure to talk with these people. And what I want to say is that these are some of the nicest people in the community. Now, I'm not trying to disparage anyone else. I'm just saying these are some of the nicest people in the community. They're very thrilled to be here, happy, hardworking, Their kids are happy, running around, having a good time in the neighborhood. And from what I can tell, the neighbors, they're very receptive to them. Matter of fact, one neighbor said, yeah, we had a family from Liberia move in, and I'm not sure how many kids they had, maybe 6 kids, and they said they're the nicest people you ever run into. And so what we've been doing, certainly there's room for improvement, I'm sure, but what we've been doing has benefited these people that have moved in, has made it affordable for them. I think being that we're the second fastest growing county in the metro, it's kind of evident that we do have low income or affordable housing for low income people. And Sarah, I see that you're from Washington, D.C., and I know some of the living costs out there are probably triple what they are here. And other areas such as California and that too, that I think our housing is extremely affordable by comparison. And I think some of these people are finding that to be the case, and they're moving in. They're wonderful additions to our community. So it's, again, I want to be clear, there's probably room for improvement. But I know, Karen, the work that we've done in the past and the houses that we've made available for affordable housing and that, particularly in Coon Rapids, I know there's houses that we've invested in, kind of bringing up to code and that sort of thing. I think it's worked. It's been a positive thing. So I look forward to seeing what, they're talking about goals and objectives, and I think we've had goals, we've had objectives. We may need more, but certainly it's a good and positive thing thus far.
Thank you, Trustee Look. Trustee Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do have some questions too about, I understand the goals, but what is Anoka County actually doing to forward these goals? And so some examples, right? Are we working with the landlords to try to make sure that they've got X amount of affordable housing units within their buildings, and then loans too? I want to say Habitat for Humanity is fairly recent, where they're very specific about giving loans to people of color, and there's like a special program. So that's just one example, but what are we doing then, action items to actually forward the goals, which are great goals?
Karen.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Meisner, excellent question. Every year our action plan pulls some of the activities out of our fair housing plan and identifies what we think we can tackle during that fiscal year. We look at the projects we receive, and in our CAPER we have to report on it. The last few years we have been really working at building up opportunities for community engagement by working directly with organizations that help establish communication between different populations in the county. We've done a lot of funding to help build capacity. And I don't, off the top of my head, know what we have in our action plan this year. I'm sure Renee will be speaking to that shortly. But every year we pluck some goals out of here, and that's why we don't adopt the goals on a regional basis each year. We want to make sure we're doing it at the county level. We want to make sure that we're not trying to implement zoning activities on top of a city's job. That's not our job. But we want to make sure that we are meeting the fair housing laws, so we can continue to receive the funding from HUD.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee West.
After that?
I don't know how much Sarah knows about what ACAP does, and I don't know what their capacity is, but they are probably one of the most affordable providers, and they do, a lot of theirs is income related, but I don't know how many units there are.
Commissioner, ACAP is certainly our largest housing provider of affordable housing. This is not, we're not looking for building or funding additional housing at this public hearing. What we're really looking at is what goals are we going to be using as we analyze funding recommendations the next 5 years.
Karen, may I add something?
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair, can I add something? I'm sorry, I'm not as familiar with the rules of speaking. For the commission or the trustee who just asked about, what steps Anoka County is taking now, there's a section in the document called Assessment of Past Goals that goes through what each jurisdiction has been doing for the last 5 years. So I read every single caper for every jurisdiction. I received updates from each member of the FIC, each representative from the different jurisdictions. And so it goes through every single goal and recommendation from the analysis of impediments 5 years ago and provides updates on what each county or each city is doing to address them. So that's a good kind of comparison tool if you're looking at that, and it kind of culls together both the CAPER and annual action plan reports.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry, what was the name of that? The assessment?
It's assessment of past goals.
Of past goals. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, we do have a motion and a second before us. If there is no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, this document has been accepted by the Board of Trustees. We'll take that under advisement. I implore you all to study it. It's a lot of reading. It's going to be a lot of work, but it's something I guess we've signed up for. So read that, understand it as best you can, and we'll be back here to vote on it probably within 2 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Karen. And that does conclude item 5. Next, we're going to hold a public hearing to obtain comments on the 2019 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, otherwise referred to as CAPER, in meeting the housing, community, and economic development needs as outlined in the Anoka County portion of the 2019 Dakota County Consortium Consolidated Plan and the Anoka County portion of the 2019 Dakota County Consortium Action Plan. There was a combined notice of the public hearing and public comment that is attached with this. For a brief explanation, I think we'll turn to Renee first.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and trustees. Renee Sandy with the Community Development Department. Each year, HUD requires, as Karen had alluded to, recipients of community development block grant funds to submit a CAPER, which is a Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report. This report is only 24 pages long, so if you are interested in reading the full report in its entirety, there is a link to it available on our Community Development webpage. Basically, I'm going to give you a summary here quickly before we open up for the public hearing on it. For program year 2019, using community development block grant funds, Anoka County supported activities and projects aimed to benefit low, moderate income households. Over 15,500 persons were assisted through public service community development block grant funded activities. Over 32 homeless persons were also benefited from the CDBG funded project. Local housing improvements included the rehabilitation of 129 multifamily affordable rental units through Common Bond. Anoka County also assisted low, moderate income households through our single family rehabilitation loan program. 7 households were assisted through that program. Again, the full report is available on our website. In 2019, CDBG's funds distributed through Anoka County totaled $1,582,000. With that, no public comments were received on our end through me. No written comments were received. Tony, I don't know if you want to open up the public comment period portion of it?
Well, we'll convene the public hearing actually to begin with.
Are there any questions from the Board of Trustees of Renee before we turn to our attorney to open the public hearing? Seeing no questions, I will turn the floor over to our attorney to open the public hearing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I will then convene the public hearing in this matter. And again, I'll state for the record, the purpose of the public hearing is to afford an opportunity for the public to comment on the performance of Anoka County Community and Government Relations in meeting the housing, community, and economic development needs as outlined in the Anoka County portion of the 2019 Dakota County Consortium Consolidated Plan and the Anoka County portion of the 2019 Dakota County Consortium Action Plan. Notice of this public hearing was published in the Anoka County Union on August 28, 2020, and I would ask the clerk to make that public notice part of the record. Is there anything further that, Renee, that you want to add for purposes of this public hearing? Nothing further? Any other comments that the board wishes to make prior to me opening up to public comment? Okay. I see nothing from the board, and my understanding, Renee, is that there were no public comments received. Is that correct?
Correct.
And according to the notice, comments had to be received by yesterday, September 21st, 2020.
Correct.
Okay, is this meeting being electronically televised at this point, or can people log into this meeting electronically at this time?
They would have needed to contact me if they wanted to make arrangements to submit comment for this. I think she's left over from your meeting.
Mr. Chair, Attorney Palumbo, we do have one caller still on our WebEx that may or may not wish to make a public comment.
Okay, at this time, I would then invite members of the public, including that person on the WebEx right now, if they wish to make comments to the Board of Trustees about what has been stated as the purpose of this public hearing. Is that person on and wish to make a comment? Just want to make sure I'm being heard by anybody on that WebEx call. Okay. I will ask one more time. Any person, any member of the public who's participating in this public hearing by WebEx or any other electronic means, including telephone, if they wish to make a comment at this time for purposes of the public hearing. Members of the board, I have not received anything in terms of report of any person wishing to participate from the public via electronics. And if there are no further public comments, I would then close the meeting and turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Attorney Palumbo. Trustee Look.
Mr. Chair, I see that under chat there's something, I don't know if that's a note or not, or
The red dot.
effort to communicate, or,
It's been there most of the days.
okay,
Yep. That's an old message.
I see, not an issue. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Trustee Look. Terrific. What are your action items for us today? What should we do? You want us to adopt this CAPER plan? Is that, or is this just a public hearing for comment?
This is a public hearing for comment, and basically what happened, and so I am now going to submit the report, but we needed to go through the public participation process and the public hearing process to ensure that the public had an opportunity to comment on the report.
Very good. Seeing no further comments, we'll conclude item 6 in the public hearing, and we'll move on to item 7, which is our HRA Management Committee report. And we have for you 2 items for action. First, the Management Committee recommends adopting Resolution 2020-02, which is the Anoka County Housing and Redevelopment Authority adoption of the proposed budget and special benefits tax levy for 2021. Karen.
Mr. Chair, trustees, this is the exact same information presented to you several weeks ago. We have a few changes. It's a slight increase. That's all of the costs and increases are related to staffing and beefing up our economic development area. So we would look for your support.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Look. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Gamache. Is there further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Our levy, special levy is adopted. Proposed budget and special benefits tax levy for 2021. Next action item is the HRA Management Committee recommends approving the renewal of insurance premiums through September 1st of 2021 in the amount of $97,075 for the senior buildings and the additional commercial buildings acquired by the HRA from Anoka County. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Brasted. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Reinhardt. Is there further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? That item passes.
Chair, I think maybe I should do that roll call for this.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, we will do a roll call vote.
Trustee Look,
Aye.
Trustee Brasted,
Aye.
Trustee West,
Aye.
Trustee Schulte,
Aye.
Trustee Meisner,
Aye.
Trustee Gamache, Trustee Reinhardt.
Aye.
And that passes. Thank you. And we will then move from our committee report to our new action item. Consider an amendment to a lease agreement with Tenry Home Care Services located within the Anoka Courthouse Commons building to add a second room to provide tutoring services related to social distance learning due to COVID-19 pandemic at a rate of $275 per month, subject to review by the county attorney as to form and legality. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Reinert. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Meisner. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying, oh, we're going to do a roll call vote again.
Trustee Brosted?
Aye.
Trustee West?
Aye.
Trustee Schulte?
Aye.
Trustee Meisner?
Aye.
Trustee Gamache? Trustee Reinert?
Aye.
Trustee Look?
Aye.
And that item passes. I believe we have no other public comments. And is there anything else to come before the HRA? Seeing none, the HRA is adjourned. Thank you.
Start the
I thought we only had to do roll.